Okay, I've got some vocals, so we're good to go. All right, this is the screencast that I mentioned in my schedule for next week that will be a pre-recorded screencast that will be available for all of you who are in BISS 1123 and BISS 1123A and section 1123B. So you'll both be seeing the same thing. I've got some meetings interspersed and things of that nature, and it's a virtual Tuesday anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and record this, and this recording will be posted in the announcements section over here for both 1123 and 1123B. Now, we're into week 4 of the course, and and Thursday I covered everything that's on exam 1. And so you have a sample exam there for exam 1, part 1 you can look at. Then I also went over exam 1, part 2, which is the hands-on part of this. And we covered XLS 6. We talked about it and covered that case. And we also then took a look at XLS 7, and we covered it, and there are a couple of that's the economic order quantity, and there are a couple of files that I have available for you that are, you could use either the hardware nuts case that the old case I had that we used, or you could, or if you wish, you could upload those keys for XLS 7. And I want to talk about them for a minute, and then I want to move on to XLS 8. But I want to take some time, because we did hardware nuts, and when I gave you an extensive look at that and how they set that spreadsheet up and how we use economic order quantity. I showed you about lead time, and we talked about all that. Now, there were also a couple of cases that I mentioned in there, and files, and I'm going to diminish my browser here for just a second, and I'm going to open up this Excel file that has the resources for this. And what we were looking at for XLS 7 is the economic order quantity. That way we try to balance off the holding costs associated with inventory versus the ordering costs. And as we talked, as we looked at that, it's very much like the total cost equation. You recall when we did the break-even analysis for that company, Badger Jams, and we also saw some break-even analysis, little spreadsheets, templates that were over that the textbook covered. So we covered this case, and I have a couple of cases there that I've gone ahead and made them into keys, and these are the Chapter 81 practice files, Figure 81.2. Now, the file section of Canvas has 2 sets of zip files. One set of zip files covers, I think, up to chapter 45, and then the second covers from there on, and they're the Excel companion files. And if I'm not mistaken, I went ahead and uploaded those. But I want to highlight them because I didn't spend much time. And again, we do have the textbook, and it does have some good things to tell us. So I'm going to go over here to Vital Source, and I'm going to open up the book. And as you'd see, we're here at economic order quantity and that model. And you see, as it was talked about, the cost for the order. You see the annual holding cost, annual demand. And if I'm not mistaken, I had mentioned this somewhat. I talked about this a little bit when I covered hardware nuts. So here's figure 81.1, and this is an EOQ. This is a template, okay? And here they've got the cost per order, and then the annual holding cost, the annual demand, and then you see the order quantity, and notice that it's the square root, okay? We're using the square root function there of 2 times K, okay, which is the cost per order, times 2 times K, which is the cost per order, times D, and D is the annual demand, and that's divided by the holding cost per year. Now, notice this looks very much like the EOQ formula that we used in hardware nuts. As I said in the lecture when we talked about that case, EOQ can be tweaked a little bit, and what the authors have done here they have used rather than using holding cost as a percentage of the value of the inventory, what they've chose to do is just get some kind of annual holding cost per year, and they have the order cost per year, okay, and then they have the total annual costs, and they show that that's the annual holding cost times the annual order cost, and then the orders per year, and we take D, which is the annual demand, and divide that by the EOQ to get the orders that we should be making per year. It's a little bit of a variation based on the EOQ, but what we're always doing here is we're trying to balance the cost of holding versus the cost of ordering, for the very simple reason, if we don't have enough inventory, we can't sell. If we don't have enough inventory, we've got a problem because our customer wants inventory and we can't get it to them. That's why we had some discussions about lead time. And then by the same token, theoretically, the cost of ordering should be the same if you order one item versus a million, assuming, okay, that your process is uniform. So there's some tweaks to this, and they basically walked you through that example, okay, and they show us here in 18 figure, and we walk through that there's the economic order quantity formula, which we essentially did when we did hardware nuts. But as I said before, there are some different issues. There's some different ways you can do it. Here's another variation. Okay. And then the authors introduce a concept of an EOB. Now, we've been talking about the economic order quantity, all right? Now they bring us they introduce a new idea of this economic order batch, the EOB. Now you say, what are you talking about there? Well, they're assuming when we do the EOQ, it's basically we assume that we're making stuff, we're making the same stuff all the year round. So we're in what we call a continuous production mode. We're making the same stuff, or we're supplying the same stuff to the same people, or generally the same people. That's our business. The batch, EOQ batch, assumes that that's not necessarily the case, that we work with a variety of products, a variety of customers, and so we have to use a model that takes into account that we have to set up everything in order to meet the needs of a customer. That's why we call it batch. Batch processing or batch manufacturing is where I might say I'm an assembler, and my company is really good at assembling products. So we assemble maybe we assemble televisions, and then when we get an order, we assemble bicycles, okay, or get them ready and ship them. So batch processing assumes I have to stop and get everything set up to handle a special order, okay? And that's really all the difference that there is between the two of them. But I wanted to show you the EOB. That's over here in this 81-2. This is the template. You'll notice we've got the cost per batch, okay? And then the annual holding costs, and then the annual demand, the annual production rate, the batch size, okay? Because somebody may say, well, I need 1,000 televisions assembled, or parts of a television, and they might call back, and we might have another customer who says, I need 350 bicycles for you to get ready to send to us. So you're going to do a partial assembly and pack the rest. It could be any one of these combinations of things, but we're running a batch. In other words, special orders. We're basically doing special orders all the time when you talk about batch. So I wanted to show you that. All right. And I wanted to make sure that you understand that the EOQ model we work with is a very simplistic one. And we talked about the fact there are commercial products out there that do inventory, that do the economic order quantity using, or an EOB, taking into account things like logistics, etc. So I wanted to take some time to explore this a little bit more. And so I'm going to go back in over here and see, I'm going to go over here into the module. And here's the key for the EOQ. Okay, well, let's look at this for a moment. And you could download it. As again, I provide you two types of files to upload for your workshop credit. One would be when I go through an old case file and it's got some meat and history and all that, and I can walk you through a finished product. Or if you wish, you can work with the files there that are relevant over in the companion files for the Winston textbook, that is the Excel modeling textbook. And so you can, if you want something that gives you have a book in front of you and you can look at it and you can see here's step 1, step 2, step 3, and they do a great job in these figures of showing you the formulas if you'd like that. Or if you want both, then I've got that arranged for you. It's taken some time, I think, for some of us to kind of get into this or understand it, but that's what's going on here. Now, here we are, and we've got this cost of order, okay, and we've got the cost per order is 20, and we've got the annual holding costs and the annual demand, and then the order quantity, EOQ. Okay. You'll notice these files are frozen. Okay, because we've got some of these assumptions already built in. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take this file, all right, and what I'm going to do is save it. I'm going to put it on my desktop and stick it there, and then we're going to play with it a little bit, work at it. Okay. So I'm going to close it off. And I think I just wiped us out here in terms of the, that's all right. We'll just go back over here and get back in. None of you are here. I'm recording this, so it's not that big of a deal. Quick links. Back to Canvas we go. Oh, they're going to make me log in. And all right. And I'm doing this from, I'm working over an 1123A in your Canvas room. Doesn't really matter. They're both the same. So we'll be back here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open up Vital Source again. And I'll get this in here. Yeah, I think that's my login. Okay. All right, and we're back here over in chapter 81, and we've got this first file that I had downloaded, and let's see where, here it is, the key EOQ. That's the resources file, so we'll close it off, and we'll go back to this key for the EOQ model as they use it. Notice there's some slight tweaks there, but it's essentially the same thing. Okay. Now I've got some variables in here that are set up, right? And it looks like they've got these frozen. But let's see, they may have them frozen so that we can see. Let's see what happens if we go to cost border, if it's going to allow us to. Yes. Okay. Let me explain what's happening here. The cells in the yellow are cells that we can edit and work with. The cells down here are non-formulaic. In other words, they're just output cells, and they've got that frozen. So let's do something. We can run some. We've got the cost per order, and let's just do this. Let's just work through a couple of things here. And I've got the cost per order. Let's say that the cost per order is 40. Let's just see what happens with everything else. Okay. You'll notice as the cost per order goes up, the order quantity is going to change. 50. Order quantity, pardon me, the annual demand is staying the same, but the order quantities differ. And I want us just to walk through this for a moment. Okay. Let's say that it's 10. Let's see what happens there. I've got a value error. I'm sorry. As the cost per order goes down, the order quantity changes. And so we'll do 20, and let's see what happens with the order, the EOQ. And the EOQ increases. And we'll do 30 cost per order. And you can see how that changes in terms of the EOQ. So this is just simply a file. It's got some frozen cells in it that will change as we change the three variable cells. That's why they've got them highlighted there. Okay, so again, this is just kind of a variation on a theme, 81.1 and 81.2. I'll go back here. And that template is set up such that as we enter data, that's what we're going to see. Now, I want to also look at the EOB. So I'm going to go back in here to the course modules and come down here to the bin. I'm going to download it. And it's another one of these types of files. And I'll diminish everybody here. And this is the economic order batch. Now here we see the cost per batch. We have that same. These cells have got active formulas in them. So one of these is set up economic order for a batch distributor or producer or assembler, someone who does specialized jobs. So that's why they call it batch, and then they have to take care of it. You see the setup costs that are there because you've got to get ready to handle the new stuff you're going to be working with. And that often means, bringing in specialized tools. That often means rearranging workstations, a whole host of things. I want to let you see the EOQ and then alert you to the fact there's also an EOB. And there's some tweaking and there's some variations on the economic order quantity. And as I mentioned before, there are commercial products that take into account things other than just annual demand. So that's pretty much it as far as economic order quantity and some of its various types. Okay. And we'll close that other spreadsheet. And you could have uploaded those for your key. It didn't matter. Okay. All right. Let's go back here now. And we'll go back into the modules. And now we're going to move on over to XLS case number 8. As I said before, we're moving fairly rapidly through these Excel cases. And that's because when we come to access, things tend to slow down because folks usually haven't had the exposure to access that they've had to Excel. All right, we've looked at XLS 7 then, and I gave you 2 keys you could upload or the hard nut or the hardware nuts case for your workshop for 7, okay? Now we're going to take a look at case number 8, all right? And also we have for case number 9, but I want to take a look at case number 8. We're going to look at that. So I'm going to diminish here my skin. I'm going to open up this resources for the Excel cases. Okay? And this is case number 8. And here we're going to look at nested functions. Nested functions mean when I have one or more functions that I've got pulled together using an if statement, and then I might use a financial function, say like a financial function, say like the NPV. And I have a case for it's called Action Plastics, and it's an old case. And then I have a couple of them from the book, the hedging tab, and that's that if statement, XLS, and we'll look at practice, chapter 12, practice files. The hedging that hedge if statement, XLS hedging tab, that's an interesting one, and I think we'd also worked with it a little bit when we did, back up in case 3 in XLS 3 when we looked at the if statement temp. Okay. Well, now we're going to come down here. We're going to take a look at the if statement, just that XLS, and see it in its use in hedging, okay? So let's start, first of all, with the Action Plastics. And I'm going to diminish this and then go back. And we're going to go, well, here's the action. Here we are. This is Action Plastic practice done example, all right, and you could use it. I also had that's the Action Plastic practice done over in the files section of Canvas. It's also over here in this module, and so I'm going to open. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to download it. And as I always do, I work in Chrome. I click Show in the folder so I know where it's at. I'm going to diminish everything, and I'm going to throw it on my desktop, and then we'll open it up. And we're going to see what we're talking about in terms of these files. And I'll diminish that resource file there. Again, you've got some choices in terms of what you do. You can upload this Action Plastics. After you watch the video, you can do that. You could try and work with those 2 files that are there that are mentioned in the resources, or you can take the ones I've got preloaded and upload them. Again, these are workshops, meaning I'm showing you how to do this stuff, providing you a demonstration, and understand now that when you hit these hands-on parts of these exams, you'll be using some of this. Okay? So let's look at this and just again start with the structures that put together well. And here's a workshop. It explains what it does. It's an insurance billing reconciliation system. Okay, there's the file name and so forth and the date. Who would be the author? The stuff on ranges. There's nothing really there to mess with. Any macros. And then you'll see over here immediately to your right, okay, And I'm going to make this full size so I can scroll and all that good stuff. You'll see the assumptions. Let's talk about this for just a moment. First of all, I've done a nice job of formatting this. I've directed the reader's eyes over here to the assumptions area. You say, Dr. Harmon, I see these in every spreadsheet you do now. Yes. Every spreadsheet you ever develop you should be able to make it a template. And by doing so, you can just plug in new changes in the assumptions and it's good to go. Think of an equation, x plus y equals 21. Well, let's start with that. X could be 0 and y could be 21, excuse me. And you could just run down the list. It's the same thing with this. This is to automate this to the extent possible and to allow you to see the potential outcomes of your actions. We've talked about this quite a bit, that your decision, when you make a decision, it's not black or white or good or bad. It's usually shades of gray, and it really can go from the range of, well, that's kind of what I expected, to, boy, I didn't expect that, or to, woo, I didn't expect that. Really good, really bad, so-so. So we have to be prepared for that. But the way we do that is we build a model of how things operate. And so we've got this, we're looking at this insurance ledger, if you will, and we're just kind of working from some assumptions. And we have one side is the employee's contribution, and the other is the total premium. And you'll see for one employee, or an employee with one dependent, or an employee with 2 or more dependents. So if you're working for them and you don't have any dependents, your premium is $240. Okay? If you have one dependent, then your premium is $312. Now notice, if you don't have any dependents, the company will cover your entire premium. But if you have a dependent, then the company says, okay, you're going to put in $72 and we'll put in the $240 to get the total premium of $312. Then if we have 2 or more dependents, the total premium is $440. The employee contribution is $200, so the employer is still paying $240. So the employer will always pay $240. You pay the difference on the basis of how many dependents you have. That's all that's going on here, okay? Let's go over now then to the input area. And notice that I've got another nice green table. I've used I've put in headings for my table. It looks nice. It flows. This is simple, but it's a good spreadsheet. Let's look at this, okay? And we see this. We have the number of dependents, the employee contribution, the company contribution, and the total premium, okay? And we've got that information there. Same story here. Now, here's where we are doing some work. And this is on the employee contribution, all right? Now, let's look at cell D8 and think about what we have. And being lazy, I didn't, I did use the name manager just a little bit. Okay, let's look at this. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get us a Word file or a pad that I can work with. I think I've got this little, yeah, the little stickies thing. This is from the other night, so. I'm going to delete that note. I'll go back into the stickies. I don't want to do sticky notes. I'm just going to make a note. All right. Now, I'm going to go back into the spreadsheet. Okay. And I'm going to get that conditional statement. And then we're going to take a minute and a little bit and talk about it. Let's see. I'm going to organize this where it makes a little more sense. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to this, and I want to put the sticky note up there. But let's look at this for just a minute. We clicked on this, and okay, it's a nested function. It uses a variety of conditional statements. It says if C8 equals 0, and C8 is the number of dependents, then the employee contribution is 0. Okay? So far, so good. Comma. If that condition isn't met, then we move to the next conditional statement. If C8 equals 1, okay, then the employee contribution is 1. Okay, now notice how these cells are all lit up over here in the assumptions table. I've almost used it like a lookup table, but instead I'm just using it with the nested assumptions. If C8 equals 1, that is the number of dependents, then the employee contribution is 1. Okay? And that's the one dependent figure. And then if that condition isn't satisfied, then if C8 is greater than or equal to 2, then it's employee contribution 2 or more. And you'll see right here. I'm going to step out for a minute. I'll show you again as they go hot. This is one of the things, okay? And when you click in here, it's going to show you. So in this case, the employee has, in C8, the employee has 3 dependents, and they meet so they meet the condition of 2 or more dependents, and the employee's charge therefore is $200, and the total premium to the insurance company is $440. Now let's look at the next cell here in D9, and notice what's going on. It's the same thing. The only thing that changes here, the assumption area doesn't change. What changes is that cell reference, in this case C9, okay, and again we have 3 or more dependents, and so it fits that. So the employee's contribution is $200. Now we see that this is consistent, so we see it's accurate. Now I'd say this, being a purist that I am, being old school, and this is my laziness, I would have put a $ sign in front of in front of C, and so that it knows I'm staying in column C and I'm coming down the rows. I didn't, but copying and pasting this, okay, I might want to do that. And you could take the code out and try it and drag and drop it and see what you get. Now, I did something before I even messed with this, the nested statements, and that is I came in, and since I was concerned about the employee's contribution and the driver here is the number of dependents. So as you see, okay, I've got them in descending order. Then I can see if it makes sense. And of course, the total premium here is the sum of D9 through E9. And again, if I hadn't been lazy, I would put $sign in front of those columns to indicate I'm staying in these columns. Okay? But that's all that we have that's going on when we have a nested function. It sounds a lot worse than it is. It's nested because we've got 2 or 3. Now, I want you to see the structure of this, all right? And let's talk about this. And I can probably show you easier in the sticky pad. In fact, let me see if I can bold those up. There. Equal if, okay, C8, that's the number of dependents, is 0, then we use the cell that's been designated as employee contribution 0, and that's up in the name manager. So use it in a formula. The comma says right here, okay, continue on. If that condition isn't met, then we go to the next condition to see if it works. If C8 equals 1, then the employee contribution would be 1, and that's that one dependent, which would be 72. Here's another comma. If C8, the employee number of dependents, is equal to or greater than 2, then the employee contribution is 2 or more, and that's that $200. As we look at this, we see it makes sense. And so that shows us the employer contribution versus the company contribution versus the total contribution. Now, I'm going to go over here for a moment into the formulas, and I'm going to go and take a look at name manager. And there we are. Okay. Now you can see we have the employee contribution 1, contribution 2, 2 or more, and contribution 0. Then they have premium for 1, premium for 2, and I just used the employee contribution. You just use it. You just use it in the formula. Or if you're like me, before you paste it into when you work with something like this, you really do need to sit down and say, okay, just put the thing down and say to yourself, all right, what is C8? I keep mentioning C8. Well, that's the number of dependents. And these names are quite easy. That's why we like to use them. The name manager, where we can insert the name into and use it in an equation or use it in a function. And we check the math to make sure that it's all right. And we're good to go. Now, in this case, there's not really much that we would need to do. However, because we have the assumptions area up here, if conditions or situations change, I can just put in the new data into the assumption area, and it's going to flow right into the rest of the output here down in this green output area. Now, let's say that if it's just the employee and the total is just, let's say for the employee only, that we decide, and I've got this equals 03 minus 03. I want you to notice this here because I'm taking the total premium less the employee contribution to get that figure that goes in. You'll notice then we've got here by 04 minus 03 and 05 minus 03. Then if the total premium changes, you can go from there. Now, I'm not sure what else I could do because I have a fairly short list of people here. Now, if I were that concerned about it, okay, I could do, let's say I have 1,000 employees and somebody says, well, how many people do you have with 3 dependents? And we could go over here and we could do, we could use the count function. And I'll put a comma in front of it, equal count. And then I'm going to click on the dialog box and I'm going to insert the function and the value. And it's going to count the number of cells in a range. It's going to count the number of cells in the range that have values. I think what I'm going to do, there are a number of count functions, so I'm going to do this equal, I'm going to do this watch, equal. And I'm going to come down here to the counts. There's count, and then there's count A. This counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. There's a count, just a simple count that can contain numbers. This counts those that are not empty. And here's the count if the cell ranges meet a certain criteria. So this looks like our function. Now the range, okay, that we're going to look at is going to be the number of dependents. So my range is going to come all the way down to here, okay? Now I'm going to open up the dialog box here, and then the criteria equals 3. And I've got 3 who fit that criteria. So I can do the same thing for everybody who has 2 dependents, who has 1 dependence or no dependence. And I could build a little chart over here that tells me the count, okay, for the number of dependents. In fact, I could do this. I can build this little table. All right. Now I'm going to look up here, on this number of dependents. I'm going to go back home and I'm going to do the wrap the text for that. Okay. And I'm going to list them 0, 1, 2, or 3. Okay. And just as a test, I'm going to put in a 4 and see what we get. And then we'll put count above it. Okay. Now this isn't a big of a deal. This doesn't seem like a massively big deal. However, if I had 500 of these and I want to have a sense of where things sit in terms of, the more dependents that the employees have, the higher the premium. Okay. So they're paying $200 of the total $440 premium, whereas somebody down here with no dependents, is paying only, well, they don't have any dependents, so they're only paying, well, if they don't have any dependents, they pay 0. The company pays the full $240. See, when I ask about that, you say, well, okay, well, why is that fair or whatever? But we're just going to get a count here. Now, I'm going to make this a little bit prettier, okay? And I'm going to do this. I'm tweaking this thing as I've done with some others, and I'm going to put in some nice fill. And I think I'll put in a nice little red fill, maybe. I think we had a blue over there, so I think I'll use a very nice, let me use a nice, very light red, okay? And I'm going to bold it and bold it. And we'll come over here, okay? And these cells here, I'm going to put them in the middle. I'm going to center them so they look nice. And then I'll do the same thing with the count. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to put equal count. I'm going to slide down here and I'm going to find, and it will give me count if, and then there's the dialog box, and it will say the range and the criterion. And so the range, very simple, range will be choose the range, and it's going to be from here, and that's going to be C8 to C18. And then the criteria will be, okay, and I'm going to hit 0. Okay, and I have two dependents. 2 employees that have 0 dependents. Now, if I want to, okay, I can put a $sign in front of the C eight to the C18 and put a $sign in front of the H. All right. And now I'm going to drag and drop this and see what I get. Okay. Now, got a little bit of an error consistency here. I have two dependents. Let's see how many of these I have. One, I have three. This may be right. Three, okay. Zero dependents, two, that checks out. One dependent, there are three of them, that checks. Two dependents, there are three of them. But then I get down here to three, and I've got a bit of a problem because it says zero, and then four says zero. So I've got an issue going on with this. So I'm going to just go back to the original COUNTIF. And let's see, it should have been, I'm going to be dealing with the criteria. And let's look down here for just a moment. Do a little bit of troubleshooting. Open up the dialog box. The range is, whoa, okay. That's part of the problem. We're getting these ranges mixed up. So let's go back up here for just a minute. And I'm going to erase all of those. We'll get rid of them. And here's what I need to do. The range needs to be in absolute cell references, so that you stay in that range. So we'll put dollar signs in front of the row numbers as well. And let's see what that looks like, and we're good. And then let's come on down here. There we go. What I did is by making the range an absolute cell reference, in other words, C18 through C8 through C18, I didn't slide down as was happening, and that gave me the anomalous data. There's none of them that have 4. Okay, we have three situations where we have 3 dependents. We have 3 situations where we have 2 dependents, and then 2 with 0 dependents. And there we go. So we've used the COUNTIF function as well here to get a count of those. Okay. So we played with this a little bit, and I have the practice done example over there. I don't have this component worked into it, but this is very simple. I just made a little area over here, output area, and I got a count for each of those. All right. Now, again, we're going a little bit past, just nested functions. I want to try something here for a minute. I'm going to try using the SUMIF. Okay. And the range is going to be the employee contribution. I'm going to put the employee contribution. Okay. That's the range. And the criterion, I'm going to go over here. Will be 440. And these are the cells to be done. So we could use the SUMIF function to go ahead and get not only the count, but how much we're going to spend. And we could do that just, using the cells and getting a total for them. Okay? Though that's Action Plastics. We added a little bit here, and I'm going to close it off, right? And there's that bit of conditional formatting we were working with. Close that off. And let's go back to the resources file for a minute, and this is an XLS8. And we had the if statement in the hedging tab. So let's go back up here, and we'll go back to the modules, and we'll find those. And we've got the access. Let's see, I've got a copy of the if statement, the key for XLS8. So I'm going to open that up. I'm going to download a copy of it. Show up my folder. And we'll put it out here. I'll open it up. Okay. As again, it was the same business about the alerts and all that. And now the resource talks about this, and I want to find out where that's at, so we'll run over there in the book. That's going to be the practice. That's over in chapter 12. So let's go back up here for a moment, and we'll go back to the book, and we're going to look at chapter 12, and we'll find the figures. And it deals with the if statements. And go back down to the resources and see where we're supposed to find them. Figure 12.1. All righty. Back up here for a moment. Here it is, figure 12.1. And the authors are going to walk you through and order a quantity discount worksheet. And notice the word problem, if I do this, I put bam. If I do this, if I do this. And you can see how you've got these cut 1, cut 2, cut 3, then the cutoff rates of 500, 1200, and 2000, and then the price, and the price for 1, the price for 2, the price for 3, the price for 4. And you can see the logical, you can see the statements here that they use to build it. And then here's the code. And they say click here to code to see the code. I'll move this out of the way. So let's look at this statement for a moment. And it's saying if A9, that's some type of statements. If A9 is less than or equal to cut 1, then the price of 1 is times A9. And then you see a comma. If parenthesis, A9 is less than cut 2, then price 2 times A9. So it's saying if A9, however it relates to cut 1, whether it's equal to or less than. If it's equal to or less than cut 1, then you multiply A9 times that cut 1 times the price times price 1. Same story for cut 2. For cut 2, if A9 is equal to or less than cut 2, then it's price 2 times A9. And then we have, if A9 is less than or equal to cut 3, then it's price 3 times A9. And the default for this is the comma price 4 times A9. Okay? I'm going to diminish this down for a minute, and let's look at that and open it up and see what's going on. Okay? Now, here we've got the inputs, the number of shares, the expiration price. This is a hedging example and a starting value. Now, the number of shares, the expiration price, and I think we had covered this a little bit when we talked about hedging and puts and calls. Okay? And we can buy, if we do a put or a call, when we do hedging, we pay for the right to sell or to buy a stock when it reaches a certain price, and that price is what we call the strike price or the execution price. Then, of course, the price now is what it is. And I think we had done this in class, and we just had the final value, final stock price, and the final put. And it gives us a feature called the insurance value, which is D9, that is the final stock price. Pardon me, which is the percentage return hedged, okay, minus the percentage of the return that's unhedged. And this gives us an insurance value. Now, you can look through this and work through it, but here's the logic. I look at what percentage of this is hedged. I've paid for the privilege of buying the stock at a particular price or selling it at a particular price. Okay. And then you have a percentage of the return that's unhinged and is not as a result of the hedging, and then you get the insurance value. So the authors have that if statement there, and it's just simply walking you through that process of derivatives. Some of these this is something you'll probably, if you're a finance major for sure, you'll study investments. If not, then you'll maybe see it in intro to finance. Okay. To help you explain even further, notice that we've got stock that's selling for $55 right now. We have an exercise price, or what we would call a strike price, of 45. Now, I can pay for the privilege. If that stock drops to 45, I can pay $5 for the privilege of selling it for 55. Okay? Even though it's priced at 45. And I have a starting value in my portfolio. That's pretty much what that's all about there. I think maybe a little advanced for most of you, but That's the deal. Okay. Back here for a moment. And we'll go back to the modules. And that's basically XLS8. I have those there for you to upload if you want. So remember now, with Action Plastics, you know, you could upload it for XLS8, or you could upload this copy of the if statement for XLS8. It matters not to me. You have the textbook that will walk you through, and you have the file saved. So I think that pretty much takes us where we need to go. So our next stop is going to be XLS9. Now this screencast is pre-recorded, and it will be posted over in the announcements areas for in the announcements areas for BISS 1123 Section A and Section B. So each section will see the same recording. So there won't be a live stream that day. Got meetings to run around in, and there's no point in trying to squeeze it in. I'm just going to go ahead and have it there for you to see, and we'll let you take a look at it and go from there. Okay, folks, I'm going to stop sharing.